What's up, everyone? Photographer Ronnie from Ronnie Photography, and today we're going to be doing some basic stuff. So today's story is not about retouching, but it's about how you can set your skin retouching tools the best way to get the best skin tones and the skin texture, and keeping that natural skin texture in all your images. I've been getting so many questions about this, and I just thought that I should do a tutorial about this very topic. So today's tutorial is about how to set up your skin retouching equipment or skin retouching tools the best way, so that you can achieve the most natural and the best way and the best skin texture for all your portraits in Photoshop. So let's kick in and we start retouching this image, and I show you how I do set up my tools for my skin retouching using frequency separation. So before you can go ahead, this image was taken by a photographer. He's called Adinoy. I'm going to put his link in the description of this video. He is an amazing portrait photographer, so that you guys can check him out. Check him out on his Instagram. You can check him out, follow him, and yeah, shout outs to you, Mr. Adnoy, for this image. So if I can go ahead, yeah, I'm also called Ronix from Ronix Photography. And yeah, guys, thank you for supporting this channel. So let's kick in, and as usual, we start by I want each and everyone to understand what frequency separation is in the first place. So frequency separation basically is whereby an image is divided into two. So it is a skin retouching method or technique which divides the image into two. It gets the colors or the skin tones. Sorry, it gets the colors or the skin tones. It puts them on one layer, and it also gets the skin texture and puts them on a different layer. So if you combine the two layers, there should be no difference between this background image and your frequency separation group. So let me kick in and I show you guys what I'm trying to mean by my previous statement. So as usual, come to the background layer, duplicate it, Control J twice, or you can just drag and drop here. So you can drag and drop right here twice, because we need to separate layers for African separation. Remember, it divides the image into two. That is the high frequency, which contains the textures, and the low frequency, which contains our colors or the skin tones. So let's name this. Remember, this middle layer is usually for the color. You can name it color or low frequency. Let me use caps for this. And the top layer is usually the texture layer, or you can find in most cases some people calling it the high frequency layer. So you shouldn't be confused, it all means the same thing. So I think naming doesn't matter for frequency separation, but as long as you arrange, like the lower layer is contains our colors or the skin tones, and the upper layer contains the skin texture. That's basically what frequency separation is all about. So you're going to turn off the texture layer and select the color or the low frequency layer. First of all, we are going to blur out the skin texture. Let me try to zoom in and I show you guys. You can see this skin texture. So we are going to make sure we remove the skin textures from this layer, so that you can remain with the colors and the skin tones. So you really have to be careful with this step, because at the end of your retouching, it is going to also determine the skin tones you're going to remain with in your image. So if at all you are careless with this step, to also provide fake results for your retouching at the end of the day. So make sure you're on your low frequency or the color layer and it is selected. Then come to filter, and you come to blur right here and come to Gaussian blur. So when you come to Gaussian blur, it will bring this little dialog box. So just make sure you turn the radius all the way down, because we want to see that area really well. So make sure you zoom in a little bit. So we're going to blur out or remove the textures from this layer by just sliding this radius. So when you slide it, you can see you have removed all the textures from the image. So make sure you do this step really carefully. So just come and slide Yeah, slide as your eyes are right here, or you can as well see on the image right here. So let's continue moving this until we can see less of a skin textures here, but you have to be checking right here and on the facial details so that you don't lose them out completely. So let's continue moving or sliding this. So let's move it. So let's see. uh, we can still see some little bit of texture. So let's slide this now until around 10. I think you can still notice that these are the eyes and these are her lips and everything. But right here in this little box right here where we zoomed this specific part here, we can still see no textures at all. So meaning we have successfully removed the skin textures from this layer. So just click OK to confirm or apply this effect on this very layer. So we are done removing the textures from our color or the low frequency layer. So click on the eye icon right here and select your texture or high frequency layer. So first of all, come to image, then come to apply image. So remember, for this layer we only want to retain the skin texture of our model. So when you come to this very layer, initially it will have different results right here. So make sure at the end of it all your image looks like this. So let me try to explain this more. Just come to select. Remember, we are extracting the textures from the color layer this time round. So remember, this is our color layer. So just come, click layer, and now select the color layer. So what we are doing right now, we are going to subtract or uh, get away the textures from this color layer. So come to the blending options and click subtract. So make sure your opacity is at 100, the scale is at 2, and the offset 128. Make sure these two boxes preserve transparency and mask, and plus the invert one is they are not checked or marked. So when you do all this well, you will see that your image, uh, the textures are right here, and you can't see the skin tones. You can only see the textures and the outlines for the overall image. So click OK right here, and it is going to apply the effect to our image. So you can see right now this is just the textures. So come to the blending options right here and look for linear light. So when you click on linear light, you'll get back your image like the way it was before. So in order to see that we did our frequency separation really well for this image, we are going to select these two layers and you're going to put them in a group so that we can check and see if at all there is a difference between the background layer right here, the initial image, and our frequency separation group. So let's select, you can click shift and click on the lower layer to select the two layers. Click Ctrl G to group them. So we're going to name this frequency separation. So let me abbreviate that. So this is our frequency separation. So when you turn this on and off, you can see there is no difference. So this implies that we have successfully carried out our frequency separation for this very image. So now we're going to kick in for the major emphasis for this tutorial today, and that is how to set up your frequency separation skin retouching tools the best way so that you can retain the original and the best skin textures for your images in Photoshop. So open your frequency separation group right here, and now you can see the colors and the textures are on different layers. So remember, we want to first of all work on the skin tones. So first of all, let me show you guys the very first method. Remember, we have two methods of frequency separation. That is what I know according to myself. So remember, we have the one for using the lasso tool method, yeah, and the one whereby you use a mixture brush tool. So let me first show you guys how you set up your lasso tool for your frequency separation and the Gaussian blur method, and the values you have to put. And in this method, I'm going to share with you guys a very important trick for getting the best skin tones for that method. So come to your low frequency layer and click on your lasso tool. This is the lasso tool, you can see. And now make sure your feathering is between 18 to 20 pixels because we want to make the most fine, actually the finest selection for the skin. So come and look for an area that has more of the skin textures than the rest of the image. So for this image, I'm going to select this very area right here. So I'm going to come and I'm going to make a selection on this very area. So make sure when you're doing this, select only and only the skin for the model. So come to filter again, then come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So we want to blur out all the textures from this image so that we can have a uniform skin texture for our image. So remember, this is the radius we initially used when we were doing our frequency separation group. So we're going to slide this until we see the skin texture that looks natural and it is uniform for our image. So remember, this is the radius we used. You guys should cram this. And yeah, you shouldn't even cram this. This will automatically pop up when you reach this step. So we are going to start moving this until we see the best skin texture for our image. So I think we are going to slide this the more. I think at around 33.2, we have a beautiful skin texture. So just click OK. So you can see how even this texture is. So let me show you guys. Let me deselect by clicking on the space. So you can see this was the before after. Before after, you can see how beautiful this has turned out to be. So I'm going to come and apply this on the rest of the skin. So, and make sure when you're selecting right here, make sure you select according to the shape of the area you're trying to apply the effect. So right click and apply the Gaussian blur. You can see the skin texture is now evening out, and it is really getting to be uniform enough. So just continue making a selection and right clicking and applying the effect on that particular area. So just continue for the rest of the image. And now what most people tend to fail is when they get to the nose area right here and they select, let me show you this. When they select this here and right click and apply the Gaussian blur, they tend to remove this beautiful highlight on the nose, and it kind of tends to flatten the nose area. So when you reach the nose area and you really feel like you want to apply this Gaussian blur on that particular highlight of the nose area, this one right here, make sure you fade it or reduce on that effect by clicking Shift Control F on the keyboard and turning down the opacity of that effect on that area. You can see we have gotten back our beautiful highlight on that particular area. And now click OK. So you can see we have applied that. You can see before, after. You can see we have applied our frequency separation, but the skin texture is still there, and yet our image is really looking amazing. So you can continue doing this for the rest of the image while making a selection according to the shape of that particular area you want to apply the effect on. So right click and you can apply the Gaussian blur. You can see right on the forehead what it has just done for us. You can see before, after, before, after. So this is how you set up your lasso tool and Gaussian blur for the lasso tool method of skin retouching using frequency separation, so that you can retain the best and most natural skin textures in all your portraits. So we are going to kick in and we learn about the second method for doing the frequency separation using a mixer brush tool in Photoshop. So let's kind of reset all we have done right here by coming to our history, and you're going to come to we're going to come right here and so that we can reset each and everything we did for this image. So this is our image. So as usual, after creating your frequency separation group, click on your texture layer. So this method is for you, for those who would prefer to use the mixer brush tool for frequency separation skin retouching in Photoshop, and the best settings for your mixer brush tool. So when we're using a mixer brush tool, we have to blend those skin tones that don't look even. So we are going to make sure we blend these skin tones where they are not transitioning well. So we are going to get a brush and kind of blend them together and get the most perfect skin texture for our images. So come right after selecting your texture or high frequency layer, come down and create a black and white adjustment layer. And as usual, for those who have been watching my tutorials before, the reason for creating this black and white layer is because we want something to show us where the skin tones are imperfect and really not blending really well with each other. So come and darken by pulling down the red channel. So you can see when you do this, the image will show you the areas that don't have uh, smooth transitions in the skin tones. So click on the color layer. Remember, the skin tones are usually in the color layer. That's the reason as to why we are selecting the low frequency or the color layer. Come and click on you look for your mixer brush tool. You can just right click. I'm using an older version of Photoshop. I'm using Photoshop 2017. So right click and get your mixer brush tool. And now, if at all you don't have it over there, just check under your brushes, right click and look for it. Now for the settings for your mixer brush tool, just click right down here and make sure it is a clean brush, and make sure this box right here is what is checked or selected. The reason for doing this is because we want to the brush to clean itself after each and every stroke. It's like for those painters, when they are doing their painting, they tend to dip the brush in water for those who are using watercolor, so that they can use it, they can clean it and use it when they're applying another color on the image they are trying to paint on. So I now come to the wetness. Use Usually I prefer to use a wetness not more than 10%. And the reason for this is because we want to retain as much texture for our images. So when you use a wetness of uh, maybe a higher percentage, you tend to make the skin textures look plastic, and you end up having plastic results for your images. And make sure the load is at 75%, the mix is at 90, and the flow at 100. Make sure sample all layers is not checked. So here we're going to kick in and start blending the skin tones. And when you're doing the blending, make sure you blend the highlights alone, the midtones alone, and the shadows alone. And for those that area whereby the skin tones are kind of transitioning, make sure you mix right in the middle of that area. So let's try to do less of the talking and we do the mixing of those areas. So you can see we have a shadow right here. I'm mixing it alone right there. You can increase or decrease on your mixer brush size by using the left and right brackets. So the left bracket on the keyboard, the left key of the bracket reduces the brush, and the right key increases on the brush size. So I just continue blending, and you can see I'm mixing the highlights alone, and the midtones alone, and the shadows alone. And the most important thing, the advantage of using a mixer brush tool, it kind of flattens out most of the blemishes in your images, so that when you reach the time for removing the blemishes, you have less work to do. So let's turn off the black and white layer to see our progress for this image so far. So click on the eye icon to deactivate the black and white layer. So let's see the before and after. So before, after, before, after. You can see on this area right here, you can see a difference it has made within just a few strokes for the mixer brush tool. So activate this black and white layer and make sure you're selected on this color or low frequency layer, and now continue mixing and blending. You can see we have some shadows here. I'm blending them alone, and we have this shadow here. Then while they're transitioning between the midtones and the shadows, I'm blending that middle part. Then now come right here, we have some sort of highlights. So we are trying to blend that area too. I think you guys can see the difference. So I'm going to turn off this black and white layer so that you can see our progress. You can see before, after. You can see on the forehead we have blended these uneven skin tones together. So you can continue doing this for the rest of your image until you feel you're satisfied. Then after doing that, you can do the blemish removal and removing the pimples. You can either use the healing brush tool, but when you're removing a blemishes, uh, select your texture. Remember, blemishes are usually on the texture layer, and now just come and uh, click over the blemish and make sure the brush is kind of slightly bigger than the blemish you're trying to remove for removing the blemishes. So basically, these are my two settings for the lasso tool method for frequency separation and the mixer brush tool method for frequency separation skin retouching in Photoshop. And if at all you found this video really important and helpful for your skin retouching, don't forget to comment in the comment section, and don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to subscribe if at all you have just landed on this video from this channel for the very first time. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet another tutorial on this channel, and stay safe.